Here for another live. For those of you watching at home or even tuning in right now, give me about 3 minutes to share this live all over Facebook and a couple other places just to make sure that we get a decent number of people in here. So we're going to be a couple of minutes, and I still haven't figured out the best way to do like a video clip to tune out for a minute. But it's gonna be about 3 minutes. So just hang tight, and we'll all be in this soon. All right, and we're back. So sorry for the delay, but it's we just finished the chili festival. So we're kind of going into this a little bit green. The chili festival finished at 5. We had to pack all our stuff, come back here and jump right into this. So there really hasn't been much time for prep, which is either going to be really good or really bad. We will see. But either way, today we're going over the market. How's the market? What's going on? Because the last time we kind of looked at the market, we were really looking at the spring and stuff growing. And this is usually the time of year we see a lot of growth and a lot of change. And it's going to be really telling looking at the data what's happening because we expect there to be a lot of growth, especially with all of the grants that came out for first time buyers, all that kind of stuff. And if it's not, that's a big deal, right? And if it is growing, how much? What's the tone for this year? So let's just take a look. And unlike in other videos where we've had time to prep, again, no prep time this time. So we're just going to we're going to just be taking a look at how the market is doing together without having much chance for me to look at this ahead of time. So I'm learning here with you. All right. So, overall for Ventura County, when we're looking at the number of listings, the overall number of listings is down slightly month over month from 941 to 912, at least for active listings. Sold and what have you are doing their own things, but if you're a buyer, the total number of homes to pick from went down. The number of new listings is kind of holding steady. We went from doing 587 last month to 580 this month. And then when we look at number of sold listings from 511 down to 475. So this is huge. When we look at last year, we were steadily increasing, right? Granted May, right, versus April. But last year we had 1,140 listings hitting the market versus this year we have 912 hitting the market. We'll look at year over year. But we typically expect to see the listings kind of going up like that. Granted, sales were kind of weird last year. Other metrics were a little weird, but we still expect sellers to be really showing up this time of year optimistic for the spring. And instead, we're going down. So it's not really what we want to see, right? Average sales price, we don't care about averages right now. There's some really weird stuff going on with high end and low end properties. We really want to see sold median because that's going to be the most common price and active median. I mean, active median list price when you're looking at active is just kind of like the optimistic seller's price. The median is the realistic seller's price, right? So we did have a slight bump up month over month from 790 last month to 800 this month. But year over year is going to be a much more telling tale because, again, we were much higher last year, right? Absorption rate, that's going to be our general ratio of buyers to sellers. In a healthy market, we want to see our absorption rate up to 4. Right now, we're at 1.64. It kind of bounces around like this. That's pretty normal. It's not a huge deal. So it's relatively stable. So we're seeing buyers and sellers entering the market at about the same rate still. And it's still a very strong seller's market because, again, at 4, anything 4 and above is a buyer's market. Anything 4 and below is a seller's market. And anything below 2 is a pretty strong seller's market still. And sold to list ratio, we're starting to see people kind of we're starting to see the sold to list price get a little bit closer to reality. So sellers aren't being as punished for their list prices as they were before. Days on MLS have gone down. Again, not super weird for this time of year because a lot of listings that were listed, say, back in November that didn't sell, well, they've come off the market. And now we're seeing a lot of homes hitting the market in spring and selling super quick. So this is pretty normal this time of year to see it going down. Last year, it creeping up over the spring was pretty weird, but usually sometime around like July or August, we start seeing those numbers creep up because, again, we have some summer homes that just are kind of lingering on us. Price volume, who cares? Just the total dollar amount of homes on the market doesn't have much bearing for most people. A little bit for realtors, but not for everyone else. So kind of the big things we want to look at here. Absorption rate 1.64 this year compared to 1.21 last year. That's a 35% change. So when we look year over year, not surprising, not a big deal. We're seeing a very strong seller's market, not quite as strong as we saw this time last year, but still well below the 4 that we would see when it starts becoming a buyer's market. So still a very, very strong seller's market, just not as crazy strong as it was last year. Averages, again, don't worry about average list price. The median list price or median sales price, though, is where I want to see down here, is $800,000 right now, but it was 875 this time last year. That is basically an 8.5% drop in the median sales price countywide. So prices are down. Okay. And the median days on market, again, still strong seller's market, but we are seeing homes on the market, median days on market, not average. Median days on market of 22 compared to 11 this time last year. So what the heck is going on? Well, first of all, we got to kind of look at interest rates, right? Right now, interest rates, this might be kind of small, but it does say 6.5 for you guys. And just to double check, no comments yet. Yeah. So it is 6.5 right now, which is obviously much, much higher than it was 2 years ago, right? We were in like the threes. So with interest rates going up, it changes your purchase power dramatically. You can almost buy, I mean, it's practically half as much house for the same payment as you could have this time last year. The 6.5% is a tenth of a percent higher than it was this time last month. Is that going to change the market? I don't think so. Not a tenth of a percent. Not with the crazy stuff we've had. But these interest rates being high is talking a lot of buyers into not buying and a lot of sellers into not selling. And while we've been keeping a very close eye on whether or not more buyers are going to hit the market or more sellers are going to hit the market, right now it does seem that it's pretty even. We do see slightly, a little bit, more buyers hitting the market than sellers, but still not enough. We would need to see like 3 times as many homes hitting the market with no new buyers for it to start kind of shifting into a buyer's market, which just it's not going to happen, at least not this year, I don't think, unless there's something super, super crazy that happens. What's interesting though is that when we're looking at medians countywide, it doesn't impact every city the same. For example, in Newbury Park, where I do a lot of my business, the median list price is actually up 11%. The median sales price, where's my median sales price? Median sales price, though, is down 22%. So we're down 22% is the median, which is huge. That's so much. But the median list price is very optimistic. So we're seeing a lot of people putting their homes in the market, hoping to get top dollar. And we're seeing really right now 2 categories of listings. We're seeing listings that are selling right away with, I mean, basically bidding wars on day 0. We're seeing that a lot more in the lower income brackets. Homes that are entry level are seeing a lot more bidding wars. The luxury homes are sitting a lot longer. Not all luxury homes, but a lot of them, especially luxury homes where the sellers are a little bit more ambitious and thinking that they can aim high. And what we're seeing a lot of is that homes that are getting skipped over in that initial wave that aren't getting offers in the first 48 hours, they seem to have a habit of sitting for basically ever, even after prices drop. We're seeing homes that were initially listed months ago that are now at fair prices that just aren't getting any attention. So it's a really complicated situation because we have some listings doing really, really well and some doing really poorly. And again, as we look at these cities, we're looking at Thousand Oaks. Thousand Oaks median sales price is down only 13%, right? But the average list price is down too. So Thousand Oaks average list price, median list price, whatever you want to look at, is down compared to Newbury Park. So Newbury Park folks are a little bit more optimistic. Overall, we're seeing days on market in Newbury Park and Thousand Oaks, median being around 30. So in 30 and 24. So our medians are a little bit higher than the 22 countywide. Kind of goes along with the higher price range though, because like Oxnard is usually much, much lower. And again, a very different situation. Here we got Camarillo, for example, which is not that far but their median sales price is still down 10%, but their median days on market is only 16. So Camarillo is flying off the shelves even faster, but they're still seeing some of the hurt from these interest rates and from the market doing stuff. Did I just look at Camarillo? Do I have two Camarillos? Camarillo residential, Camarillo residential. Okay. Oh, okay. I pushed a couple buttons. We got Camarillo multiple times. So, overall, we're seeing stuff slow down, but with all of the people I'm talking to, all of the clients I'm talking to, I'm seeing a lot of well, hold on, let's get big. Let's make this big here. Let's stop screen share for a second. So, overall, let's get this down too. Overall, we're seeing a lot of frustration. We're seeing a lot of sellers that are very optimistic that are frustrated they can't get top dollar necessarily anymore. While it is still a strong market, it's not as strong, right? Some buyers aren't showing up. And we're seeing a lot of buyers that really want to buy. There's a long list of buyers, but they just don't want the prices. Some of the problems that we have right now is that rental prices are now a lot lower than purchase price. For a lot of entry level people looking at, condos versus apartments, for example, you can get an apartment for like 2,400, 2,800 compared to if you're doing a 3.5% down loan, you might be looking at like a $5,000 monthly payment for something that's probably not as nice as the apartments available. So, a lot of people are just opting to sit, which is really slowing us down. And by the way, guys, I see that we have a lot of folks joining. If you have questions, comments, anything like that, put it in. It'll be fun to look at. Like if you want to look at certain cities or if you have questions about certain situations, feel free to ask away or, say whatever you got to say. Another really, really interesting point that I got here. Let's see. We got to share our screen again, share this window, share. So you got to keep in mind that the market isn't just the market, right? It's not just the sales. It's not just the stuff in the MLS. This is a program called AirDNA, and this lets us look at how Airbnbs are doing in our current area. And what's really interesting, I don't usually pull all the cities because like Camarillo has a lot of really weird rules. Thousand Oaks has weird rules. So for like Airbnbs, Thousand Oaks tends to be the most easy to kind of make sense of and see what's going on. Sometimes Oxnard's okay. Sometimes unincorporated areas can be okay, but Thousand Oaks, generally, most of the Airbnbs are unincorporated. So it's a good way to get a good average, right? So, when we're looking at how Airbnbs are doing, which is really interesting, the average daily rate has gone way up. There's way more people getting into Airbnbs now than there were last year. The occupancy rate has kind of done some weird stuff, right? But revenue overall is down. So there's more competition, even though prices have kind of gone up a little bit, even though because occupancy is down relative to where it was last year. Why is occupancy down? Well, it's because if we go down here, we have a ton of Airbnbs. Basically, once we hit the pandemic, Airbnbs went away. We had 73 that fell all the way down to 48 and kind of hung around 48, 49 for a long time. Then once we hit interest rates going up, we went from 49 to 58 to 60 to 84, right? So we're all the way up to 84. So a lot of people with the stress of everything going on have started turning their homes into rentals. So we're seeing an influx in rental prices. And, there's a lot of different things we can look at, but I wonder if I can pull it up here. The real estate cycle. Images. There's a really cheesy one that's courtesy of Meet Kevin. This guy right here. Can I make you big? How big can I make you? That didn't work. Can I open image in new tab? Wonderful. So this is the real estate cycle. I'm going to try to make it as big as I can. But basically what we see is, we've been seeing a just shortage of houses, right? So we were kind of in the like low vacancies, absorption of excess supply, the increase in rent and increase in prices, right? So we're kind of in this part. We saw a lot of new construction. We saw that accelerated new construction. Um, and we're kind of skipping steps because we have a housing shortage. So, like where we are in this cycle, because this would be a normal cycle, but right now we have a couple of issues. We have no vacancies, right? Um, which, well, we have too many homes for sale, which is translating into low vacancy, right? But then the prices went up. So we're kind of dinking back and forth in this part of this graph, right? In between like new construction, increase in prices, but decrease in rent, but vacancies going up and then down. So we're kind of in this area here, which is really, really interesting because as we have a bunch of people saying, forget it, I'm not going to sell my home, we're seeing a lot more rentals hit the market. As rentals hit the market, it's bringing down rental prices, not by much, but by enough. And we're seeing a surplus of all these different rentals, whether it's short term or long term. So, as all of these people begin renting their homes, it's going to cause two things. It's going to cause a tightening of our supply. Our number of homes that we have listed to buy and sell is going to go down as all these people decide to rent. It's going to cause rent to go down, which is good for people that are renting. And ultimately, in the long term, hopefully, we get back down here, right, with high vacancies, oversupply, or at least an oversupply of rentals, where we start seeing prices go down. So, when we're looking, just double checking on messages here, when we're looking at these graphs, when we're looking at our listing prices and our sales price, we expect to see this skyrocketing. And I'm really worried that as we get into spring and summer, if we don't see a lot of excitement, we're not going to have the crazy price increases that we're really hoping for, or that would be normal for the spring. It wouldn't be that weird to me to see that this was propped up by $10,000 just by the buyer grants that have now expired. So personally, for me, okay, hold on, let's close this guy right here. I'm going to get to your question here in a second, NV. But personally, what I'm worried about is that prices are going to possibly go down because when we saw that $10,000 increase, I think that was really forced by these grants. And if we don't see excitement, especially with rising interest rates, I'm worried that prices may come down. Now, how much down? I don't think by much, especially because as prices come down, sellers will probably just not want to move because they have such good rates. NV says, have you heard any feedback from people converting their homes into Airbnbs? Wondering how that's been working out for them as more have done the same in the local area, maybe push down pricing. Oh, we're just kind of talking about that. But, we don't have a lot of Airbnbs. At least we didn't. But when we went from, roughly 40 in the last several years to roughly 80 now, that competition is causing, a lot of Airbnbs to not be as profitable as they were. They're having to be a little bit more competitive. So, am I hearing people crying about it? Actually, yeah, I'm hearing I'm hearing a couple people. I don't know all the Airbnbs, but for the two or three I know in town, they definitely are saying it's not like it was for the last several years, which is weird because pandemic time it was still better, right? There were still people renting more than they are now. But, overall, I think that rentals as a whole are going to bubble up and be really optimistic and good as people are kind of giving up on the housing market. But as it's bubbling up, I think that we're going to see too many hit the market, get an oversaturation, it's going to go down. So from the people I'm talking to right now, they're already saying they're feeling kind of the pain, but I I think that there's going to be a lot more growth. Is it still worth them to Airbnb versus long-term rental? Now, that's just such a tough question for Airbnb versus long-term because we're seeing more rentals both in the Airbnb and the long-term. We're seeing both. So, right now rental prices seem to be steady. Airbnb prices seem to be more volatile. And even in long-term versus short-term rentals, depending on the type of property you're doing, even long-term rentals are often like 1 to 3 years, especially when the market's kind of volatile like this. So you can kind of not count on a renter only renting for a year or two, but it wouldn't be that weird, right? Even for a house right now. So, if you're looking at the next 12 months, should you use your property as an Airbnb or a long-term rental? If it was me, I would probably long-term rental it. And there's always going to be special exceptions in situations depending on your specific property. But, when I look at over here at the number of Airbnbs jumping from Q3 22 from 60 to, what is that, Q4 of 22 up to 84, I think we're going to see all of these numbers increasing. And at least if you can lock someone into a long-term rental, then hopefully you've at least got your price for the year. Because like as we're looking up here at like the average daily rate in January and it going down, typically we see it relatively stable or going up, right? We're seeing occupancy rates, while they were really high back here when the market was going better, now we're down. We went from 96 to like 60%, granted August versus January, right? But, you know, it's typically it's more down. So if it was me, I would opt for more stability in this situation because I think it's on its way down. Again, no way to know 100%, but just from what we're seeing, even revenue down from 6,000 to 3,000. Again, partially from seasonal, but a lot because of more competition. So I would personally prefer to have someone in a long-term situation. Maybe I make a little bit less money, put in a lot less work, but at least it's stable. I don't have to worry about it crashing and now trying to put my home up as a long-term rental after putting in all that work. So let's see here. So overall, that's what we got with the market right now. If anyone else has any other questions, happy to talk about them. But overall, is it I think I search higher yield. Yeah, I mean, it can be. The problem with Airbnbs really is that is management fees, really, and amount of work. Because like when you're looking at management fees for a regular rental, it's oftentimes like a month of rent per year, maybe less than that, depends on the situation. Versus an Airbnb is often like 25, between like 20 and 30% of the total gross for the place because it's just so much more work. So, you can really make a lot of money in Airbnbs. You really, really can. Out here, Ventura County, we have less like vacation rentals, maybe a little bit on the beach. But, realistically for like Airbnbs, the ones that really kill it, I think, are ones that are marketed for a month or 3. So they're not really short-term rentals anymore once they're over a month. Really targeting like nurses and athletes and other people that are coming in for a couple months for a gig. So, it grosses a lot more money. And if you had the time to manage it yourself, change the sheets, do all that stuff yourself, it could be a pretty decent job. Like you can make some pretty good money that way. But, if you're paying a property manager for it, I think it would be tough right now. I wouldn't be super interested unless I was okay doing the work myself. So, the big question right now is like, is it a good time to buy? Is it a good time to sell? You know, we have a couple different factors here. On the buying side, I think that it is a good time to buy if you can afford the payment because I'm not convinced that prices are going to go down significantly, if at all. They might, we don't know, but we're not really expecting to see price drops from anyone I've spoken to, anything I've seen of any significant amount anytime soon. So if like right now, if you're looking at like you're going to rent for, $3,000 a month or and like put money into savings, or you're going to put 5,000 bucks a month into mortgage, I would rather see you put the 5,000 bucks a month into mortgage, just whatever the pricing is going on. Hopefully you're stable and that way you're taking all that money and, paying off some of your equity. Now, if you're in a really tight spot and you're not sure if you can buy and you don't really have savings and you're not really putting stuff into the bank account, with how uncertain the market is, I would probably hang tight, stay where you're renting, especially if it's cheap, especially if you're staying with folks. I wouldn't jump up and down to buy a place with these rates with the kind of uncertainty in the market. But if you're ready, you're ready. And it again, prices I don't think are going to collapse. The big benefit to the people that are ready and that can afford it is that they're paying off their equity now, and prices won't change much, and they can always refinance. Have you sold many existing Airbnb properties recently, like already existing, but you want to get out of the business? Um, Ventura County is really challenging because California as a whole is built to punish new buyers and award people that have been there a long time. So, people that bought their homes in this neighborhood in the 70s or 80s very often bought for like $100,000 or less, right? So, roughly one third of all of our current homeowners, maybe a little more than that, bought in the 80s or earlier. A third. It's a lot. So, we're not coming across a lot of people that are buying new with the new prices and then Airbnb-ing it. We're coming across mostly people that have lived here for 20 years or maybe it's dad's property or something like that, and now they're Airbnb-ing it. And those people have no reason to stop doing it because their mortgage is like $600 if even. And so their barrier to make money is really low. So, for the most part, the people that are turning over is a very small fraction of people that are buying relatively recently and selling relatively recently. So, we're not seeing a lot of people being fed up and selling because most of the existing Airbnbs have owned the property for 10 plus years. And even if the market goes down, their profit margin is still really, really strong. Um, I'm not going to say that no one would ever sell it and give up, but I haven't come across anyone personally. And most of the ones I talk to are like, "Oh man, I'm only making $2,000 a month instead of 3,000." You know, so so yeah, they're uncomfortable, but they're not, not suffering that bad. Now, when it comes to like, is it a good time to sell? Again, it's a tough question. Why are you selling? Are you selling because you're packing your stuff and you're leaving the state? Are you selling because you're downsizing? Are you selling because someone died? You know, um, and that's going to be a really big deciding factor because if you're selling your home right now and you're trying to upgrade, you're probably selling at a 3% interest rate and buying at a 7%. I just had one client get a quote for 8% interest rate. I mean, you have to really want to move to do that. Um, so in terms of like upgrading, even downsizing, I don't know. It feels like with the rates, I mean, if you've got to move, you've got to move. Um, Prices aren't going to change much, but the real hurt is going to be on the immediate price adjustment, your immediate payment adjustment. So, that's tough. If you can afford the payment and you don't mind, then it seems like it's a good time to sell because prices aren't really going up. So you're not really going to make more money if you wait. It's still a strong seller's market. So it is a good time to sell. It's just a matter of, where are you going and what's that situation look like? Because the buyer situation is kind of tough. Now, if like someone passed away and you just need to get rid of the place versus rent it out or what have you, get rid of it, sell it. I wouldn't sit on it in this market, especially if you have if you're covered by the general tax exemptions. I believe it's 500,000. Is it $500,000 for a couple, a married couple, and $250,000 exemption for a single person? So depending on how much equity you have in the home, if it's $500,000 and you can just sell it and cash out and not deal with the market doing weird things, um, I would probably do that instead of trying to rent it and seeing prices go weird and trying to deal with tenants in this time. I mean, I've seen clients all the time, like I'm renting, but I'd love to pull the trigger and ditch my landlord the second that the market looks good, right? So it's just such a weird time that, given your specific situation, I would sell sooner rather than later as long as buying makes sense, right? So, past that, that's what we're looking at. It's a really slow year. I would typically get around one listing a month this time of year. Right now we're looking at zero for the whole year so far. People just don't want to move. And the people that are moving are really squirrely, are really bummed out by the prices, or really excited by the prices. There's a lot of real weird behavior right now. So it's just kind of a weird, tough time to move, and you've got to really want it, especially with the bidding wars, especially with, the lack of inventory. If you're selling, it's easy times, easy to sell. It's just a matter of making sure we can find you a place that you want to move to because your selection is low, and finding, a situation that makes sense. for your situation, for your life and for your move and what you're doing with the property, where you're going next. So if anyone else has any questions, feel free to let me know. We'll hang out here for a couple more minutes, probably for another 2-ish minutes until 6:40. And, past that, we're going to just call it. And if you have any questions, you can always reach out to me directly because, again, all of your questions in your situation doesn't necessarily match up with what the market is doing as a whole, right? So if you have something going on specifically in your life, it'd be good to know. Because, like, for example, I'm talking with someone today that's trying to sell their manufactured home and upgrade to a bigger manufactured home. And the manufactured home world is super, super weird because just the loans on it are super difficult right now, like incredibly difficult, harder than they've ever been. And we're seeing a lot of cash buyers because people are saying forget it for the rates and trying to get into a manufactured home instead. So, depending on what you're looking at and your exact situation, whether the market is up, down, sideways, whatever, your specific story and your specific city might be something completely different. So it'd be good to talk to you and figure out what you want to do. Anyways, guys, nice talking with you. And I'll catch you next week. Next week, we're going to be going over, I believe, why listings don't sell. I think that's what's going on. I forget if it's the buyer or the seller one. I can double check. But we're going to always do the second week and then third week back to back. It's always going to be looking at listings that aren't selling and then looking at deals, I believe. So if you're thinking about making a move, check in next week. It'll be all different content and helping you look for how to find deals and just generally making your next move better. So like I said, guys, if you need anything else, let me know. I'll talk to you all soon.